This episode of Dorking Out is brought to you by the Macmillan Toy Company. Playtime is our specialty.
And the number 20. Everyone was talking about the 20th anniversary of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I think it's important we remember a few other just as influential TV shows that celebrated their 20th anniversary, including Veronica's Closet, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, and of course, Dharma and Greg.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's The Dorking Out Show with Christopher Allen Smith and Sonia Mansfield. Welcome to episode 38 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories and culture that we love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and pretty much everywhere and everything else where you find stories that interest you or us, because this is our show. This is the Big Little Lies About Kong edition. With me is my co-host, professional author and writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hello there.
Hello there.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith. In this week's episode, we review Kong Skull Island, which made all the money this weekend at $61 million. In our second segment, we talk about HBO's 7-part miniseries Big Little Lies about wealthy moms and their wealthy mom problems, which include murder. And we end the show with our favorite headlines of the week. We've got a lot to dork out about, so let's get this podcast started.
Topic 1. There was a time when you could tell the season of the year by the kind of movies that come out. Nothing much came out in January through March other than just flat-out awful movies. You just didn't go to the movies. April and May had a few dramas and thrillers and comedies, but June and July was the big blockbuster juicy season where a lot of the movies that I liked as a kid came out, and a lot of the movies the kind of comic booky kind of movies that are big now lived in June and July. Then there was kind of a lull in August, and then pretty much September through the end of the year was all Oscar dramas and prestige dramas, big historical pictures or whatever. That's right, there was a time when Oscar season started in September, not December. But in the modern blockbuster movie era of this comic book dominated landscape, the types of movies that once were reserved for June and July have spread out all over the year. Last year, the summer season essentially started with Deadpool in February and ended with Star Wars 2 weeks before the end of the year. So why am I pointing out the obvious? Because the blockbuster season for 2017 begins this week with Kong Skull Island, the second in Universal's mega monster movie series, which began in 2014 with Godzilla, which will continue soon with Godzilla King of the Monsters, and after that, Godzilla versus King Kong. Sweet Christmas, I am looking forward to that, kind of. Starring Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, John Goodman, John C. Reilly, and a thoroughly forgettable rest of the cast. Skull Island was directed by Jordan Vogt-Roberts, the son of Julia Roberts and John Voight. Skull Island tells the story of a 1973 expedition. I'm trying to work here, Sonia.
Sorry.
It tells the story of 1973 expedition to a mysterious island in the Pacific where monsters fight. That is all you need to know, except when I was preparing this segment with Sonia Mansfield, I asked her what she thought, and she told me what she thought about Kong Skull Island, is that the dorking out movie rating system sucks, and she doesn't like it. Sonia Mansfield, what is wrong with our 0 through 10 rating system?
It's stupid. That's what's wrong with it. I don't like it at all. It is dumb. I cannot work this way. That is my problem. Here's my problem.
You want to go to a thumb-based system? You want to go to stars? What do you want to do?
No, maybe like letter grades or something. I don't know. It's too hard. Like we just did like Get Out and Logan last week. So like Get Out, I gave like a 9. Yeah. And Logan, I gave say an 8. Here's a spoiler. I kind of liked Kong Skull Island. I thought it was very entertaining, so then, do I give it like a 7? That means it's almost as good as Logan. It's nowhere near as good as Logan. I just have problems with our rating system.
That's what a 6 is for. That's what a 5.5 is for.
But then that seems so low.
Well, but that's the thing.
Then
it's a
I'm
10-point rating.
Yeah. It seems like a 5 to me seems like it's not really good. Like I gave like Suicide Squad like a 4. And that movie's garbage.
You should have given Suicide Squad a 2. That's your problem is you're not using the system right.
So my problem is I'm not using the system right. That's what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I disagree.
More importantly, so what would you give our rating system?
I'd give it a D.
All right. So, Skull Island.
Yes.
Back to the topic.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what we're actually supposed to talk about.
What did you think?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised that I liked it. And I don't know why I was surprised. I mean, but the previews had me a little worried because King Kong and the original Godzilla, like they're not just big monster movies. Like they're about something more. And I think the previews for Kong Skull Island had me concerned that this was just going to be like a monster movie. Like kind of what year did that awful Godzilla come out? The one with Matthew Broderick.
98.
Yeah. I was worried it was going to be something like that.
Okay.
But I don't think it's like that. I appreciated that. Oh, it's much better than that. I appreciate that Kong isn't just a monster. Like kind of some of the earlier incarnations of King Kong. You feel for him. And, as usual, the real monster is us.
Really?
What? Spoiler alert.
They should make a movie about that someday.
I just think there's a lot in this movie that you expect. There's a lot of like monsters and fighting and guns, but there were some kind of thoughtful moments that I wasn't expecting. I could mention some of them. Do we want to get that specific?
Well, why don't you mention a couple?
I like there's a soldier, and you're not wrong when you say like there's a bunch of cast that you're like you don't even remember who they are. Right. There is a bunch of like the soldiers that are, they're just like Vietnam movie stock characters.
Right.
And, one of those soldiers tells a story about how he got his gun from like a farmer in Vietnam. And that farmer had never even seen a gun before the Americans came. And, he says like how sometimes our enemies don't exist until we create them. And that's like what they had done there with Kong. And I liked pretty much every moment with John C. Reilly's character.
Yeah.
I like the scene where one of the soldiers is washing his wounds in the ocean and he sees Kong sit down and do the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a perfect movie by far. I'm not even sure I'll be thinking about this movie 2 days from now, but I really had a good time when I saw it.
Yeah. I think for me, that is one of the benefits of this kind of modern age of blockbuster comic book, big budget movies, is they seem almost in every case to have figured out, because it used to be back in the 80s and 90s, you'd get, one ET for every 5 Howard the Ducks, kind of. There would be a lot of big misses. Like the usual situation was, you're not going to get Superman 2, or you're going to get Batman Forever. But now these big movies are either kind of passable or kind of enjoyable to watch but thoroughly forgettable, or they're actually pretty good. For me, this one had a whole lot of interesting elements, a whole lot of interesting details. But it is nearly perfectly forgettable, I think. I think you're
Right.
completely right. I would give this, on our rating system that I think is fantastic, I would give this a perfect 5. There's enjoyable moments, but nothing is revolutionary spectacular. There are definitely some drawbacks, and there's definitely some clunky moments. I mean, the pretty much every actor that I did not name in the intro was forgettable. Plus, well, I'm going to go in a couple different directions. One, there's been this question for the last couple of years about, is Tom Hiddleston going to be the next James Bond or blah, blah, blah? No. Now we know he is not.
I know that, like, there are hardcore Tom Hiddleston fans out there.
I don't think
like,
there are.
I think there are. Like, he's got a fan base, and I think he's fine. Like, he doesn't do it for me at all.
No, he does not. Well, actually, let's rewind a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, I have more to say about that too.
Yeah.
But.
So this is a movie about, it's kind of a Vietnam era, an expedition of kind of protected by some Vietnam vets, and actually just right out of the war, Vietnam, they're actually shipping back home as they're doing this job somewhere in the Pacific, and then they're going to be coming back home at the end of the Vietnam War. There's big fight. All their Hueys get wrecked. We've seen that in the preview. And then it's just, a Jurassic Island type movie. It's basically Jurassic Island 3, where they're just marching across this island trying to get off.
Right.
There's a lot of creepy, crawly monsters.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
I feel like they should say in rating systems, like, this movie's rated PG-13 for language and violence and giant spiders. Because giant spiders really upset me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I saw that. I was a little... Actually, let me step back. Yes, there's a giant spider in this movie, and it's very creepy. Didn't they mention giant ants, though, right?
But I don't think we never see them.
I just realized that, as I was thinking about this, because I was like, ooh, giant ants, can't wait to see that. And then they never showed them, now that I think about it. So that's definitely a drawback for this movie. But yes. The thing is Kong, I agree with you. Kong is a really memorable character. There's a reason people love King Kong. And I don't know, friend of the show, I believe, Jeff Bond, is not a big fan of Peter Jackson's King Kong. But I really, really like that movie, except for the fact that it's too long. But
it is way too long, but there were parts of it I really, really liked.
Yeah, and Kong was fantastic. The idea, and it's funny how much of this movie is stolen from that movie. The idea of you're the last of your kind. Every other, all your other species is pretty much dead. You're living alone. You're pissed off. You're marooned. You're scared. You're fighting these monsters. It's kind of heartbreaking, but then that's kind of it. Kong doesn't really have a story. With other King Kong movies, we get to know King Kong, we get to see his plight there on the island, and then man comes in and takes him and takes him to New York, and whatever happens.
They tell us his story.
Yeah, here,
like John C. They don't show.
Yeah,
but
here it's just he's on the island and he's fighting monsters, and surprise, surprise, their sequel's coming. Kong Skull Island. He stays on the island. It's all fighting monsters on the island, which is fine, but there's not really a lot here. The screenwriters kind of make a play at, he's just protecting his territory and this and that, but my main problem is this movie seems to be kind of 3 or 4 different scripts. 3 or 4 different movies crammed together. There's the Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson thread, which is he's kind of an adventurer, she's a war photographer, and they're having their thing. Then there's and that's one tone. Then there's Samuel L. Jackson and his kind of wrecked force of U.S. soldiers kind of trying to find their buddies, claw their way out of this bad situation. and they're in another tone of movies. Then there's John C. Reilly, who's one character who's a hell of a lot of fun, but his acting and his tone and his everything is on a completely different page.
Yeah, he's the heart of this movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that's the movie. I don't want to see the Samuel L. Jackson movie. I know I don't want to see the Tom Hiddleston movie. I want to see the John C. Reilly movie. Yeah, and that's probably 20%.
I think the reason you're feeling like it's like 3 different movies is because it's actually written by 3 different people. And so one of them is Dan Gilroy, who wrote and directed a movie I think is really underappreciated, Nightcrawler.
Okay.
Did you see that movie?
Oh, it did. No, that's a fantastic movie.
It's a really good movie. And then it's also written by Max Bornstein, who wrote the 2014 Godzilla, which I didn't see.
Okay.
So I can't speak to that. And then it's also written by Derek Conley, who co-wrote Jurassic World.
Okay. Well, this makes a lot of sense. Hey, these guys wrote a bunch of big monster stuff. Let's get them in here to write a bunch of big monster stuff. Which, I mean, it just seems, because that's the thing. It's usually, a lot of scripts have several different authors and stuff, but usually they're able to blend it a little bit better. And what's weird is there's 2 or 3 different threads, and each thread has a different tone. So when the, because everybody goes in on this chopper force to go in on the island, bad stuff happens, they're all split up, and when they come back together, it's kind of like, this is very weird to see the John C. Reilly comedic World War II vet that's been marooned on the island for years interact with the Vietnam vets, and they're kind of in this warmed over platoon. We've seen some hell in Vietnam thing, and he's kind of this crazy mountain man. It just doesn't it doesn't spark. And then there's also these weird things where in the movie this, force of Huey helicopters that's ferrying everybody in and is supposed to be protecting everybody, gets wrecked, which is why they're stuck on the island. And then at the end, the soldiers essentially want to kill the monsters, and they want to kill, and they want to kind of drag their soldier, find the carcasses of their soldiers and bring them back and get out, But Tom Hiddleston acts like they're completely raving maniacs. And we get the kind of warmed over, expected, completely unsurprising, he's just protecting his territory speech, which Tom Hiddleston has just spent an hour and a half murdering every other kind of monster on this island, all of which we're protecting. But he's going to draw the line at Kong, and he's going to draw the line at the guy that he saw.
It's a weird movie.
It's things like that they just don't quite line up. The tone doesn't quite line up. The kind of motivations of the characters don't quite line up. It is spectacular, and there are a lot of good monster fights, but a lot of it is, if you think of it, kind of the first third of Kong's story in Peter Jackson's King Kong, which is, you see he's marooned, you see he's angry, you see he's sad, and that's it. And then the movie just stops. Kong doesn't really have any development throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And people might ask, well, shoot, what are you expecting from a giant monkey in a monster movie? Anybody that's seen Peter Jackson's King Kong or the original King Kong knows King Kong's a fantastic, very sympathetic character.
And he looks amazing in this movie. Like, the visual effects are really, really good.
Yeah.
They really could have done a lot.
Yeah.
With Kong. I mean, they do a lot with Kong, but they really could have done a lot more. And he looks awesome. He doesn't look video gamey.
Right.
The fur, like all that, it looks awesome. And the cinematography is really great too. Actually, this movie looks better than it just looks better than you would think it would.
Yeah. No, it looks good.
They really want you to think about Apocalypse Now.
Yes,
at the beginning of this movie.
Yes,
boy, they really want you to think about Apocalypse Now at the beginning of this movie.
What other thoughts did you have?
I did want to say, like, this movie comes in like a little under 2 hours, and I will say, I feel like they could have trimmed it just a little bit more and make it like just a little tighter. It takes them too long for me to get to the island. Because once they get to the island, it just moves, like it just goes. But, there's this whole like, let's assemble the team thing that goes on. And I'm just like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we know they're all going to go to the island. Can we get to the monkey now? Like,
yeah.
I just needed to get to that. And I really like this cast. I think that has something to do with maybe why I had such a good time watching it, because it has John Goodman, and he's one of those awesome actors that every time you see his name in the credits, you think, well, even if this movie sucks, at least John Goodman's going to be in it, And then you get to see Samuel Jackson play someone other than a comic book character who explains plot. Or
I don't know. He seemed pretty one note, pretty Captain Kurtz.
You think so?
He seemed this was not his shining hour.
Yeah, it's better than hearing him say like, "What's in your wallet?" I'll take that. How about that?
Well, okay, yeah. If that's the bar we're jumping over, okay.
I thought he was fine in this movie. I really liked John C. Reilly. I already said that. And then there's the beautiful people. There's Brie Larson and Tom Hiddleston, and they're just fine. Like, I think she fares better in this movie than he does. Does he have personality at all?
He has nothing. There's nothing in this movie.
Is that the thing?
It was kind of disturbing.
Because I saw The Night Manager with him and Hugh Laurie.
Which I need to see. Maybe he could be James Bond.
And it's quite good.
Uh-huh.
But it's another one where I was like, I don't know if he really has any personality.
Oh, that's interesting, because that was the one that got everybody buzzing. That was the one where he's supposed to be.
It's not that he's not good in it. Maybe it's just the characters he plays, because he plays Loki and people love him as Loki. So maybe it's just the characters he picks.
It could be. I was shocked. It was strange, because he's trying to be the cool, detached, seen it all, world-weary kind of guy. And especially in his scenes with John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly was just blowing him off the screen. Just right. It wasn't even a contest. Like, it was almost embarrassing at how kind of wooden and tonally
That's what it
weird.
Is. He is totally wooden.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like I like Brie Larson. I think she's really, great. She's in Room, one of my favorite movies in the last couple of years. She's fine in this movie. They don't give her like a ton to do.
Right.
I like her relationship with Kong. I think it's very sweet. It's more respectful, I guess, than the other ones that seemed almost more like Kong was in love with the women.
Well, yeah, that's I definitely see
I don't get
and
that
I think
impression.
that was kind of the point.
Yeah, I don't think that's not what's happening here. It seems a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of one of the things that I liked about the other Kongs is one of the things about him is he's acting not naturally, but he's doing his thing, and we're kind of projecting this stuff onto him that we shouldn't be projecting because he's not even supposed to be here. It's kind of like our fault for expecting certain things from him. The intricacies of men and women dealing with each other. But this was almost kind of like he kind of liked her, but not really. And he was there for her, but when the script needs him to forget about her and not deal with her so she can go off and have scenes with Tom Hiddleston or whatever.
Right.
Then it's like, all right, then he's fine. But then when he needs to grab her and, run around with her, then he'll do that. And, yeah.
So I'm not like a Kong franchise expert, but is Kong DC or Marvel? Like, will there be like a Kong v Batman, or does he join the Avengers? Like, I don't know how.
There's going to be a Kong v. There's going to be a Kong v Godzilla, which I am excited for, but I think that is one of the things is this is one of the first movies in every studio is trying to launch their shared universe, whatever.
Right.
Universal's trying to do two. They're doing the King Kong Godzilla monster movie universe, and they're trying theoretically with Tom Cruise's Mummy to launch a classic Universal's monster and creep show shared universe. Anyway, so there are some things from this movie that connect over to the 2014 Godzilla movie and the later movies, but you could completely give or take it, or who cares?
So I don't need to see the 2014 Godzilla.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's fun. It's interesting. There are nice moments, but it's, Godzilla movies are tough to tell because it's basically humans watching Godzilla do what Godzilla's going to do anyway. And that's it. So it's beautiful. It's interesting. It's kind of terrifying, but there's not a lot of story dynamics going on there. Like with Kong Skull Island. So you would give this I
say a 6. If you're going to make me do the numbers.
I am going to make you do the numbers. Because that's the thing, is you could do the letters, but then you could just translate them to numbers anyway. It all goes back to numbers.
All right, 6.
I give it a 5. It's fine. It's fun. All right, on to topic 2.
Want more dorking out? Well, there's a few simple things you can do. First, go to iTunes and give us your 5-star rating and review. This helps us find new listeners. Next, be a good friend and share like your mommy told you to. Simply go to dorkingoutshow.com and you'll find some links to our show, which you can post to your Facebook, Twitter, or wherever fine social media links are shared. It's an easy way to impress your friends and make your enemies green with envy. Which is really the point of social media anyway, isn't it? After all, listening to any of the Dorking Out shows means that you're a modern trendsetter. We know, because if audience research has shown anything, it's that the Dorking Out show audience is smarter, more attractive, and less susceptible to baseless flattery than any other audience in the podcasting world. That means that you're the best. It's right here, in the data, which is totally real and not made up in any way. So share our show. You can talk about it with your friends, and we can get new listeners, which means you get more shows. It's the circle of life modified to include podcasting. Point is, please rate us on iTunes and tell your friends. Now, back to the show.
Topic 2, Big Little Lies. It's on HBO. It started a couple of weeks ago. It's a 7-part miniseries starring Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, Shailene Woodley, I hope I pronounced that right, Laura Dern, Alexander Skarsgard, and Adam Scott. Based on the book by Liane Moriarty and created and written by David E. Kelley, the man behind some of your favorite TV shows from the 80s and 90s, including Ally McBeal, Boston Legal, Picket Fences, and Smith's favorite show, L.A. Law.
Wrong. Stephen Bochco created L.A. Law. I will not have David E. Kelley come in his last few seasons. He didn't create it. He wasn't behind it.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't mean to insinuate that he created it. I'm sorry. He wrote for L.A. Law. I apologize. I just wanted to mention L.A. Law for Smith.
And I just wanted to pretend to defend it.
You love it so much. Directed by Jean-Marc Vallée, who also did the movies Dallas Buyers Club and Wild, Big Little Lies opens like pretty much every other TV show with a murder. We don't know who the victim is. We don't know who did it. Then the story starts from the beginning with an incident between 2 children at a Monterey, California elementary school. Witherspoon is channeling Elections Tracy Flick as the ultimate helicopter mom. Nicole Kidman is the seemingly perfect housewife. Laura Dern is a high-powered executive and overprotective mom. And Woodley is the new girl in town with a dark secret. It's like Bad Moms, but more murdery. Smith, I'm dying to know what you think about Big Little Lies.
I really like it, but it reminds me a lot of Get Out, in that I was listening to Pop Culture Happy Hour this week, and they were talking about Get Out, and I hate to say it, but I forget the name of the guy's name, but he's an African-American guy on the show, and he said that he had lived about the first 2/3 of Get Out. I which makes sense because it is this kind of very realistic modern human dynamic of things that creep us out in society, difficult topics, things that make us uncomfortable in the modern world. Here, it's the same thing. I've known a lot of women like this, and they are some of the creepiest, most difficult people to deal with. They seem to be very focused on projecting a certain kind of image, but kind of nearly everything about that image is inauthentic.
It's Gene Demby, by the way, is the host of Code Switch on NPR.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry
Gene
to
Demby.
interrupt.
No, that's
Go ahead.
okay. Thank you. But at the same time, so there's this one level where this world of these moms and wives is kind of this bizarre funhouse passive aggressive mirror of kind of domestic horror, where they're just being unbelievably cruel, unbelievably mean, unbelievably petty towards each other, and they seem to be spending a lot of their time exercising their kind of worst traits on each other. This is almost like, now that I'm thinking about it, this is almost like the female version of Vinyl.
I didn't see Vinyl.
Where Vinyl was kind of the peak anti-hero television, for me at least. Or it's like Taboo, or The Young Pope, where it's just, you get these young to middle-aged guys just being awful and mean and treating everyone around them horribly and just watching them spin their wheels. This is a little bit more understandable, because it has a lot to do with domestic life, which we can all relate to. It's not, like drug dealers and space monsters and comic book heroes. But at the same time, it's this very almost psychotically passive-aggressive world of putting on one front, putting on a show for the world, while at the same time kind of behind closed doors being completely different and authentic in these quiet little moments with these even more kind of twisted, I guess that's where the name comes from, Big Little Lies. They're all these little white lies that they're telling each other that reveal these huge chasms between the image that they project to the world around them and what's actually going on in their homes. So I found it very chilling, very creepy. I am almost not interested in the murder, because not only do we don't know who gets killed. We don't know what it's about. We don't even know how they get killed.
Yeah, we don't really know. We don't know anything about it at all.
So it just turns into this story of the kind of this rivalry between Laura Dern and Reese Witherspoon, with Shailene
Woodley.
Shailene Woodley kind of caught in the middle, which I don't know so that's kind of where I'm coming from. This is kind of, I'm a little amazed at how close to, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, this is kind of like what it would be like if the Gilmore Girls was real. Like if people really dealt with each other like this, and people really talk like that, and really went at each other, and they kind of perform their lives. Here's the thing.
People do. They do this.
They do. Yes, they do. Yes.
And that's the thing. Like, I really like this. I'm totally sucked in. And it's super soapy, but I think because of the cast, it's like more than that. I think it's a really good mystery.
Yeah.
Which I'm enjoying. But one of the things I think is so interesting is we're talking about, like, it's almost like stay-at-home moms versus working moms.
It is.
You know, like Reese Witherspoon's character is a stay-at-home mom, and Laura Dern's character is an executive at PayPal.
Right.
And ultimately, really, Reese Witherspoon's character is jealous of Laura Dern's character. Like, she wanted kind of the high-powered career, and maybe she could have had one if her first husband hadn't left her. with their daughter when she was so young. And so like I think there's like some resentment there, and I think that's why she gets hyper focused on the first husband. And at the same time, Laura Dern's character is kind of jealous that Reese Witherspoon's character gets to stay at home,
right,
and be a mom. And it's like these women could never be friends.
Right.
You know, at best they could be frenemies, which it seemed like maybe they were until the incident at the beginning. And you know, and that's why Madeline, that's Reese Witherspoon's character, she makes friends with like Kidman's character and Woodley's character because they're just they're a little bit more passive.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting that they have all these problems. I mean, they're all married and rich, but they focus like all their attention on their kids.
Right.
And their kids' success.
Right.
You know, and why this little incident that really is like could have been like a kind of a nothing thing becomes such a big deal. Right. Because it's not about the kids, it's about these mothers and their own issues.
Yes.
And their own insecurities. And the kids could really work it out themselves, but the parents just escalate everything.
Yeah.
Until, you know, I mean, we as of this recording, you've seen the first 4. I've only seen the first 3.
Right.
You know, but it's just escalating. Like every episode, it's just turning into like a bigger deal. Like, you know, Laura Dern's character invites every kid in the class to a birthday party except for for one kid.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Reese Witherspoon's character keeps her daughter away from the party and like lures away a bunch of other kids from the party. You know, it's just so mean.
It is so mean. And that's the thing.
You know, it really is like a bad mom situation.
Yeah.
But not funny.
No, and that's the thing and that's one of the things I've noticed with this kind of strata of American society that I've kind of come in contact with, but I'm not necessarily in, which is, it is amazing how much happiness and contentment goes by when people without real problems find stuff like this, find these dumb little rivalries with women they don't even like to fixate on and just kind of wreck their happiness, focusing on all this dumb stuff. Like some of it is important. Shailene Woodley's son being kind of accused of something, and Laura Dern's daughter having something, you know, done to her. So there is a little bit of problems there. But yeah, and I am interested. What do you think of Reese Witherspoon? Because there was a moment where Adam Scott started listing off all of the fights that she's getting into, with everybody, and it's like, wow. Like, I didn't even notice it, but when he started just putting a simple list together and kind of trying to point out to her, hey, maybe it's not them, maybe you like to do this. It was pretty spectacular.
She 100% is one of those people that likes to do that, and I know people like that.
Yeah.
I 100% know people like that because I'm probably one of the people that kind of falls into the like more passive camp, you know, so I tend to attract people like Reese Witherspoon's character.
Oh God.
Because I'm not argumentative. I'm very go with the flow, except with you. Right. You know, but most of the time I'm very go with the flow. So I tend to, you know, I attract these kind of people.
What are you at all?
But I really I think everyone is so good in this cast.
Yeah. That's the thing is, I don't think it's that soapy, because I have seen a lot of situations like this, like a lot of the way that they talk about things and kind of exaggerate the threats to their kids or exaggerate.
I should say, I do think it's soapy, but I don't think it feels soapy.
Right. Well,
because it has such great people in it, because it looks so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I would even say because a lot of it is so true, and maybe it's the circles that I come in contact with, but there's a lot of, like, I've seen that. I don't know a couple people like this. I know a lot of people like this.
Right.
You know, not to this extent, and they're not committing murders, as far as I know.
As far as I know.
But, well, actually, here's the other thing that I want to ask you about.
Okay.
What do you think is the story with Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman's marriage. And for those of you who have seen the show, you know what we're talking about. For those of you who have not seen the show, it's kind of, well, it is definitely domestic violence.
Yes, it is, but I can't put my finger on where it's going.
Right.
And that's one of those ones that's super interesting because it's not, everybody's story is different. And we are often told like a different story about domestic violence. You know,
right.
We kind of, when you see it play out in movies and TV shows, it's usually kind of the same story. And this one is so weird because he's very intense and he is he's violent.
Yeah.
And then she fights back and then it's like more like rough sex.
Right.
Basically at that point. And she seems to kind of like it, but she doesn't. It's very strange. And then they go to counseling together and like she doesn't even want to admit to the counselor
right
that it gets that bad.
She wants to put on
probably
the show.
Because she's ashamed.
Right.
You know, probably. And then he's the one who's like, it does get physical, you know, I'm not proud of it. Like the fact that he said something put his character in a different place for me where I was like, I think he's going to be in this little box.
Yeah.
But he's not in the box.
Right. But he's pretty close to the box.
Yes.
It's like he might be in the box,
but
the top he's in the box, but the top's not closed, and he's maybe not all in the box.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not like, oh, he's an awesome dude. Like, no, he's not. He's totally not. He's very scary to me.
Right.
But I can't figure out like what his end game is or what he's trying to do, or is he being honest when he talks about his feelings? Is when he says like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose her or whatever.
Right.
Does he mean that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think he's a smart guy, and he realizes if he keeps acting like this, he is going to lose her.
Right.
But and that's the thing is I've seen enough. The older I get, the more true I think the aphorism is you can never really know someone else's marriage. Even when you know the facts of their marriage, the dynamics of those facts can be completely different from marriage to marriage. For example, I can imagine a marriage like Nicole Kidman and Alexander Skarsgård where there's domestic violence that you kind of, as you would expect, it's the guy going after the woman. And you would expect it to be a hellscape, and she's just, battered and doesn't know what to do, and her self-esteem's hammered down, and she's, it's a tragedy.
Right.
Then you have this case, which I think one of the things that is creepy about it, and why I compared it to kind of a horror movie, is the facts are nearly the same as the one I just described, but the way she's reacting to it might not. She doesn't seem to be somebody with low self-esteem. She does seem to be somebody that has the means and even the spine to kind of get out if she wants to get out.
Yeah. But
she's not. And in fact, she might be not provoking it, or she might be provoking it in some instances. And I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that, women that do whatever deserve to have any kind of domestic violence visited on them.
Yeah. It's not playing in the straight line that we're used to.
But that's the thing, is it's not playing in the straight line that we're used to, but it's more realistic because of that, I think. Because we have all seen awful, awful situations that if we're honest with ourselves, they don't go in those straight lines. And things are more complex than some of the ways that we talk about. And I've, as I grow up and I see more, I shouldn't say it exactly like this because it's going to sound a little whatever, but, I've had encounters with several strains of domestic violence through all the people that I've known. And the story is a lot harder to wrap your head around sometimes. The stereotypes of what you would expect and how you would expect it to go are just that, stereotypes, and they don't reveal a lot of truth about what is actually going on. And I think one of the things that I liked about Big Little Lies so much is it captures some of that weird, cloudy, awful, impossible to know qualities of certain people and their marriages and the way they interact. And you could spend 100 years talking about them or trying to tease out meaning from their actions, but you can never really know. And, you know, so it's almost like now that I'm kind of talking through it with you like this, it's almost like we're even if they reveal the mystery of who got killed and how they got killed, I don't know if we're really going to know. We're going to have any bigger truth revealed.
Like the mystery isn't even the thing for me.
Yeah.
Like I like it. Like I'm curious. I want to know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, I just like the show. Even without the mystery.
Yeah. I've completely checked out on the mystery, kind of. I'm just watching them do their thing. And then it's like, oh yeah, I guess they are. Because the first couple episodes had this device where there was like a press conference that occurs after the murder by the police department talking about the murder, but they don't give you any good details. There's these weird mini interviews. It's a little bit like the way that they did season 1 of True Detective, where they're having an interview with the cops that takes place after the murder.
And they're interviewing other parents from the school.
Which I gotta say, the more they did this, the less those things revealed. The less it was kind of like a lot of it is, you know, Reese Witherspoon's character really doesn't like Laura Dern's character. Laura Dern's character was super pissed at Reese Witherspoon's character.
Right.
And that was about it. It's like we could have had the first 5 minutes of the show filled up with that device, but it kind of spilled over. Well,
I'm fine with it. I like
episodes. So yeah.
I also want to mention that anyone who's really into like architecture porn, like the houses in this show, are amazing.
You know, that reminds me.
Like people, when they talk about like Nora Ephron, like Nancy Meyer movies,
right,
with like the gorgeous kitchens,
yeah,
you know, and all this, like the houses on this show are so beautiful with like ocean views.
That's right.
Like windows, high ceilings, like just immaculate, you know, dream kitchens. Like,
yeah,
that's all of you just want to go to Monterey. You're like, I don't care if everyone there is, you know, awful and a murderer. And
that's right.
You know, I still want to go there.
Well, I do, but I realize when you say that, it's kind of almost like the girl on the train syndrome, where every important building in that story backs up against the train tracks.
Right.
Here, there's one. The Monterey of Big Little Lies is one road. All of the houses face the ocean. You come out of the house, you cross the street. Every business in town is on the other side of the street, and that's it. There's one road that goes north-south along the coast. Everything is facing the ocean or a business where everybody goes.
It's working for me. I'm going to go.
Yeah. All right. So, Sonia Mansfield, get used to this question from now until forever. What rating would you give?
God damn it.
Big Little Lies.
With this stupid number system. Hate it. I'm going to give it an 8.
All right. Yeah, that's good. I'll give it a 7
What do you think?
7 or an 8. Yeah, it's good. It's not a Breaking Bad 10 or a... Gosh, now that I was going to say this, I was going to say it's not a Star Trek The Next Generation 9, but I'm not sure you can give Star Trek The Next Generation a 9, because the first seasons were really quite awful. I am having an existential crisis about Star Trek at the end of this segment for Big Little Lies. And with
now,
that...
favorite headlines. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. Not really. Favorite headlines. So my favorite headline, because I'm just going to jump right in and go first, is Marvel's Iron Fist is getting bad reviews.
Holy smokes, it is.
This is big news, okay? It is currently 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. And Iron Fist is one of those Netflix Marvel shows like Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist, and they're all supposed to come together, and they're going to be the Defenders. I have that right?
Yep.
So it's kind of a big deal if Iron Fist sucks, right?
Well, you know what? Here's what's interesting.
Or does it not matter because once Defender starts, he'll be like one part of a show, so the whole show?
I think that's what it is. I think if this was a network television where they were selling ads against this show and they needed this show to work to make season after season after season to make more ads, it would be a problem. Here, it's season 1 sucks. It sets him up for the Defenders. He'll be in the Defenders. There just won't be a season 2. And that's it.
I have to say, like, I have no interest in Iron Fist. I had no interest in Iron Fist before.
Yeah.
I have even less now. This is their first really big stumble.
This is the
because I
problem.
haven't seen I haven't seen Daredevil, but it was well received, and I know people quite like it. Mm-hmm. I love Jessica Jones. I really, really like Luke Cage. So I'm a little surprised. I don't know if I'm surprised. That's not the word. This is just their first big stumble.
Yeah, this is the first. If you want to think about it, this is the biggest Marvel stumble for all of Marvel's connected universe. And I know that there's some discussion about how these Netflix shows really aren't connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe by some really, I think, over-the-top hyperventilating Marvel fans, because it is all one thing.
It absolutely is. They are connected.
There's some discussion about you see all these shots of New York, but you never see Avengers Tower, which they're chalking up to, well, it's not really in the Avengers universe. No, I think it's just they're being super cheap with special effects.
I think that's it. But they say it is. They talk about those.
Exactly.
They talk about the incident.
Exactly.
And all of that.
Exactly.
So
they talk about it. They make reference to it. They talk about the Avengers. They don't have one building in the background of a couple shots, and everyone freaks out. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, in our show notes, we have a link to the Entertainment Weekly review where they give it a D, and they really riff it a new one.
We at one point, I think we're planning on talking about this, and maybe this is a time for us to discuss dorking out show policy a little bit, which is if something really sucks right out of the gate and is just a total train wreck, and we're going to talk about it, chances are we will just talk about something else. Case in point, Assassin's Creed. Remember when we were going to have Kurt on to talk about Assassin's Creed?
We were going to have Kirk Hamilton on from Kotaku to talk about Assassin's Creed, and we did not because the movie was not very good.
That's right. The movie wasn't good. I wasn't in the movie to see another awful video game movie. I'm sure Sonia was in the same boat, so it was like, fine, forget it. We're out. We're not doing it. So, yeah, Iron Fist, we're not going to talk about it. Besides, it's another superhero that's punching people in New York City. We've seen it all before.
Well, then I'm glad that I put this headline here.
That's right. It's a train wreck, and this is probably the last you will hear of Iron Fist on Dorking Out. All right. Which brings us to my favorite headline, which is Steven Spielberg is making a movie very fast. Last week came word that he was teaming up with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep for a movie called The Post, which is about the Pentagon Papers and the Washington Post's decision to print them and kind of go to legal war against the Nixon administration back in the early 70s. This is actually, if you want to think about it, this could kind of be a prequel to All the President's Men, because this is Tom Hanks is going to be playing Ben Bradley.
Here we go, another franchise.
That's right. It's right. It's the All the President's Men cinematic
universe.
Actually, you know what? You could do that. So it would be The Post. It would be All the President's Men. Then you'd skip forward several generations, and it would be Spotlight.
Spotlight.
You could probably go back in time a couple, do like His Girl Friday or something. You could put that in there. Anyway, so
you heard it here first, people. We've put it together.
That's right. It's the Ben Bradley Connected Universe. No, so Tom Hanks is playing Ben Bradley. Meryl Streep is playing Catherine Graham. And Steven Spielberg. Here's the thing: Steven Spielberg is planning to start shooting this in May and have it out for Oscar consideration by the end of this year. So this movie came out of nowhere, and it's supposedly going to be in theaters later this year for Oscar contention. I am very excited about it.
I love newspaper movies. I'm into it.
That's right. Oh, The Paper. Thank you.
The Paper.
That's right. That gets us through the 90s. That's the story of Michael Keaton as a fucking newspaper reporter.
But it's not real. That's not one based on a true story.
That's fine. We don't need to be real and all this. Anyway, so sorry. I'm distracted by my burgeoning newspaper cinematic universe. I am very excited for this movie. Every movie that Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg have done together is fantastic. I'm very excited to see this. Has Meryl Streep...
this is right in my sweet spot.
Yeah.
I love newspaper movies. It's got Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
It's got Tom Hanks. It's Steven Spielberg. So I'm in.
Is this
for sure?
Is this Meryl Streep's first movie with Steven Spielberg?
I think it is. I can't think of one.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. What I was very shocked by. Hold on. So the movie is scripted by Liz Hannah, and it recounts the Washington Post role in exposing the Pentagon Papers in 1971. You go to Liz Hannah's Internet Movie Database page. She is known for Miscellaneous Crew, Ugly Betty, Miscellaneous Crew, Reign Over Me.
What?
That's the thing. She has 2 writing credits. She has 3 writing credits, I'm sorry. One is a short film, 2014. One is an episode of Guidance, the TV series.
I don't even know what that is.
Exactly. The last one is The Post.
That's crazy.
I
must
know.
Do you think it's just some crazy great first movie script?
It could be. I think I don't know if this was on the Blacklist. And for those of you who don't know, the Blacklist is a list that comes out every year from that's basically made up of kind of voting by a lot of the readers and a lot of the kind of mid-level executives at talent agencies and studios and production houses, where they make a list of the best unproduced screenplays going around. So yeah, who knows? I don't know what the story is. All I know is that this person that I've never heard of before is making this movie, and it's great. It's going to be great. I'm very excited for it, but who knows what the story is. So yeah, The Post. I am very excited for this movie. And then what was and then we had the last one that you put on here.
Yeah, so I thought this was interesting because we've talked about late night TV here before, and so Colbert has been winning in the ratings on late night TV, and so Jimmy Fallon is, I guess, going to try to get more political on the Tonight Show to try to win back his rating crown from Colbert, because Colbert has been very political. And I'm going to say that's been working for me because I haven't been watching Colbert very much. But now, because he's been getting more political, which I think he's so good at.
Yeah,
I've been watching more. Not at night because I'm an old lady who goes to bed. But I'll watch the clips the next day. Whereas before, I really wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jimmy Fallon was everything with him was lip sync battle and. Exactly. All that. And now Lip Sync Battles even got its own show. It's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but I don't watch any Jimmy Fallon at all. So
yeah, I have a TiVo season pass to both of these shows, and I have found myself. It's funny. I found myself, and we talked about this in our discussion about late night television, and I think it was the first year of Stephen Colbert.
yeah,
I was a huge Stephen Colbert fan. I liked it even more than The Daily Show near the end, but I thought his CBS show was kind of really hit and miss, and he was finding it difficult for the transition. I still think big chunks of his show are kind of hit and miss, but he definitely has kind of hit his stride. And what's interesting is he's winning with overall viewers, but Jimmy Fallon is still winning for the viewers that advertisers really want the most.
yeah.
And I gotta say it, as big of a not Trump fan as I am, and Stephen Colbert has been making his bones recently about just going after Trump with both guns blazing. I really am not sure I want to watch Jimmy Fallon kind of be an also ran in here. And if I were
you know what? It's just not what Jimmy Fallon does.
Exactly. Like he can make some sharp comments, which he did on kind of Weekend Update when he did that years and years ago. But I'm not sure that's his thing. It just seems like he's going to tell a couple mean jokes, and that's going to fix it for him. I mean, the thing I like about his show is you don't really know what's going to come. He does do these ridiculous games and weird little things that that I think are really funny.
I'm pretty indifferent. I'm pretty indifferent to Jimmy Fallon, I have to say, and I didn't love that. Like, he was one of the last people to get Trump on his show, and then he didn't ask him anything, serious, and like messed up his hair and blah blah blah. Right. It was like not my favorite.
Yeah.
So he's kind of been on my list since then, but it's just not what he does. He's like super nice. It's kind of the same thing with Leno. Like, Leno was the same way. Like, he doesn't ask those kind of questions.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is, I think Jimmy.
I miss Letterman.
Yeah. I think, man, does that guy. Have you seen him lately?
Letterman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. And there's a really great interview going around right now. I could put it in the show notes for everybody if you like.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? Because holy Christmas, that guy looks. Anyway.
He's just talking about how much he kind of misses late night and how he would go to task on Trump.
Yeah. Which that's the thing is I don't want Jimmy is not that kind of guy. Jimmy's we should say Fallon's because there's also Jimmy Kimmel in here.
Right.
So many Jimmys. Anyway, is Fallon? I think he's more authentic than Jay Leno. Jay Leno seemed like he was kind of phoning in his whole show,
right?
And he left a promising stand-up career to do dishwater, watered-down comedy on the Tonight Show, which is fine. But I think a lot of people were frustrated at the level of softball jokes that he used to do.
Right.
Fallon, I think, really is funny, and he really does have. That kind of point of view really is who he is authentically. He's just a lot more boyish in his comedy. So I like him for what it is. And I like the idea of somebody trying to go in a different direction. I do hear what you're saying about him not going after Trump, but not any late night television show, not any late night comedy show on the major networks, never on the Tonight Show, never on David Letterman's show, never on Fallon, even Jack Parr, Steve Allen, way back, they never did that kind of show. It's not like Nixon ever went on, Jack Parr's Tonight Show and really got the third degree.
Right.
So I'm not, he's not too much on my list for not going after Trump. Booking him, maybe, yeah, but, not flaying him like Jon Stewart would have. Yeah, I guess I don't blame him too much. But yeah, if we're in a situation where we're looking to Jimmy Fallon to save us
then
on the set of the Tonight Show,
right?
This
is all Jimmy Fallon's fault.
That's right. We've got bigger problems, and guess what? We do have bigger problems.
Yeah. Sorry, you lost your health care. Blame Jimmy Fallon.
That's right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy Fallon. You should have asked harder questions.
That's right. So, yeah. Anything else that you would like to say on this episode of Dorking Out?
I think I'll just say goodbye.
Bye!
The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.